I have on the line a fellow that I've admired for years and years, Pat O'Brien. Pat, you're a native Milwaukeean, so I guess we're both Midwest boys.
Yeah, where were you born?
Well, I was born in Chicago Heights, Illinois.
Oh, yeah.
But we're generally from the same Midwest area.
Uh-huh.
You're a fellow that's working on a motion picture right now, and in fact, I think you've made close to, 100 films?
Pretty close to it. I never, made a down count on it, but matter of fact, I was making a picture in London a few years ago, and I gave the guy a scoop. And I said, this is my 100th picture, so he'd have something to write about.
I think a lot of folks are going to be interested in this picture that you're making because you're...
Yeah, this is a good picture. It's a sort of comedy drama. It's like black comedy, but it's he's got a wonderful cast assembled. I'm very happy to be in it because it's a wonderful reunion for Myrna Loy and myself, who play his mother and dad. And 46 years ago, we played the man and wife in my second picture, which was Constellation Marriage, when I was under contract to Howard Hughes. So here we are, back again, and strangely enough, coincidentally, that year was 1931 when we played together. And 1931 was the year we were married, my wife and I. So we'll be married 47 years in January.
I want to talk to you about your wife. We mentioned he this time. He is Burt Reynolds in this case, isn't he?
He's the director, and he's absolutely brilliant. He directs in a low-key fashion. He never raises his voice. If he has any suggestions, he calls you aside or off stage. And the greatest barometer is the crew, and they love him. And when that occurs, you know you've got something going all the way for you. And of course, he's assembled a great cast. He has Joan Woodward and Sally Field and Tom DeLuise and Jimmy Benson, that boy that made One-on-One, and Norman Fell, and well, he goes on with the cast. David Steinberg. And
does sound like a terrific motion picture. It's called, if I'm not mistaken, The End, isn't it?
That's the name of it. Yeah, it's the story of a fellow, a young man who has been told that he has a incurable blood disease, so he sets out to commit suicide. And everything works in reverse. The rope breaks and the poison doesn't work and everything. So finally he figures it isn't in the... He even gets Dom DeLuise to help him commit suicide. It doesn't work, so... Finish is he doesn't commit suicide. But I won't tell you the finish.
How far along are you in production now?
Oh, well, I'm finished. I finished the other day. They'll go on with this cast.
I see. But you...
We've been in about 3 weeks.
You don't know when for sure it will be released, do you?
I imagine it'll be after the holidays, after the Christmas holidays. I have another picture coming out, should be out in October, and that's Billy Jack Goes to Washington. That's the remake of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. We made it nearly a year ago. It's a wonderful cast with E.G. Marshall and Lucy Arnaz and Tom Laughlin, who's Billy Jack. But he's a maverick, and he's having trouble with the distributors. He's going to do it on his own or not. Well, he'll do it, but it's going to take a little... It's in its 21st week now on the campus at San Diego College.
Mm-hmm.
So he figures... we were on the Merv Griffin show last week, and on that show, Merv asked him he said he thought it was the middle of October. So we may get lucky and maybe they'll come to a mutual agreement.
Pat O'Brien, if I'm not mistaken, you tried to retire about 2 years ago, didn't you?
Yeah, it lasted about 10 days. Well, retirement's not for me. I found that out. I need occupational therapy.
Now, we mentioned your wife, Eloise. You were married back in 1931. Somebody once said that the best thing that you ever did was to bring her back out of retirement.
Yeah, 21 years ago, I used to come out of retirement. We go out every year now in summer stock. This will be our 21st year in Chicago at the Drury Lane. I don't know when we're going in there.
Well, we'll be watching for you because that's not that far away from us.
No, I know. I'm going to 2 weeks. I go to Waterloo, Iowa. I'm speaking there at a banquet. But it's in Janesville. Where is that in Iowa? Do you know where that is?
Janesville, Iowa. I don't have a map in front of me. I can't place it?
It's probably right adjacent, I'm sure, to Waterloo because I signed the contract for Waterloo.
The
Maybe I'll meet my Waterloo and Jamestown.
somewhere out there, anyway. You've kind of been known for your anecdotes that you tell in the theater when you do a show. Could you tell us one of your favorite stories?
Well, that's a little difficult when you ask, so hurriedly. You can really go blank unless you're out there with an audience facing you, I don't know what type of story you want.
Oh, anything that comes to mind, and we don't have to press the subject right here. If you happen to think of one a little bit later on, why, then just relay it to us, will you?
Yeah.
I wanted to find out, you're 78 years old, is that right?
I will be on November 11th.
Well, happy birthday early.
Thank you.
What do you do to stay in shape? Obviously, you have to maintain some pretty good physical fitness to work as hard as you do.
I just came out of the pool about 10 minutes before your call. I swim twice a day, and that's about it, because that's wonderful exercise.
Do you take vitamins?
No, I take a couple of opulents. You know what those are?
Not offhand.
Yeah, Jimmy Durante put me on those a long time ago. Excuse me. No, I don't take any vitamins. The swimming serves all purposes, It's arms and legs and chest, and it's the best exercise, I think, in the world. And, of course, at my age, I'm not going to do any of that jogging bit,
Mm-hmm.
And this is even a substitute for walking, because I have a torn ligament in one knee, which is sort of an arthritic thing, but when I get in that pool, it's wonderful, the relief it gives me.
Now, I know people like George Behrens still smoke cigars. Do you smoke or drink?
Yeah. Oh, I haven't had hard liquor in 12 years, I guess. I drink wine or beer. And I used to smoke I never smoked a cigarette in my life, like 77 years. But I used to smoke 12 to 16 cigars a day. But I don't do that anymore. I smoke one or two at the most. That's after meals. And, I feel great. I had a pacemaker put in a year ago. And you want stories? I'll tell you, every time I cough, the garage door opens. But several of us have had them put in. Henry Fonda, Myron Cohen. And they're amazing, They act as a pumping station. I haven't had a heart attack, but there was a little murmur or something, and the doctor said, why don't you put in a pacemaker? And I said, well, that's why you went to medical school, if you think so. So I did. It's been wonderful.
Pat O'Brien, you mentioned Jimmy Durante. I've heard that he's been sick for quite some time. How is he doing?
He's been ill for, a few years now. He's fine mentally, but he's been in a wheelchair. I think Jimmy's around 84, 85. Because, but none of us wants to retire, Bob Hope, George Burns. The only one that really retired was Jimmy. I talked to him yesterday. He's in New York, Cagney. But, you see, he raises Morgan horses up in New York State, and he has a beautiful place in Martha's Vineyard and a beautiful boat. So he can retire and enjoy a very definite and definitive hobby. And as I say, my hobby is mostly reading. You can read yourself to death. But swimming and, I haven't played golf, 20 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Pat O'Brien, will you hang on here? I want to break for a commercial.
Yeah.
And we'll be right back. Pat, do you get a chance to visit with some of the names we've just mentioned very often? Or is it, to the point where so many people are at different places in the country that it's hard to get together with your old friends or old cronies?
No, we meet very often. We have the Players Club in New York, and several of us out here that are members. And Ralph Bellamy and Tom Roche and Victor Jory and Cagney when he's here, Harry Morgan, and all the old-timers. Leon Ames. We were at Lloyd Nolan had a lunch over on Easter, and Phyllis was there, Phyllis Diller, and they had a picture, and she wanted to get in the picture with all the guys, which she did, and we started adding up the ages of everybody in the picture, and the ages, plus the years that we were all married, made a pretty good score across the top of the page. Frankie's been married 52 years, it's 47 we are. The Robert Young's 46. Benny, had he lived, would be married close to 50. Irene's done over 50. All these people you don't read about, because there's a saying around show business that, a happy marriage is bad copy. It's not exciting reading, but it's exciting living, I'll tell you that.
That's a great thing to hear. I know marriages are hard to keep going in a lot of businesses, and it's not just show business.
No, that's right. People fail, if they look up the statistics, they find out that the butcher and the banker and the dentist and the businessman had probably top us in divorces, but who reads about it,
Mm-hmm. You mentioned Jack Benny. Were you good friends of Jack?
Oh, very close. Jack and I were in the Navy at the same time. He and Spence Tracy, back in 1917, because Spence and I were kids together since we were 12 years old. And then we went in the theater. We went to the American Academy of Dramatic Art together, Spence and I. And we roomed together in New York. And he came out here a year ahead of me, and so did Jimmy.
Now, when you get together with these old timers, and boy, they're just super big names in the business, do you fellas talk business, or do you just talk about private matters?
Oh, we talk about the theater. What the hell else? That's what's close to our hearts from the old days. And it's a nostalgic trip, mostly. And, we sit around like a lot of dame gabbing, I guess. But it's fun, and it's a joy to know that these friendships have sustained themselves through the years. And, there's some wonderful heartaches that we talk about in the old days when it was so rough. We were all, poor kids, all of us, our backgrounds and everything else, and it was a pot of gold that fulfilled itself and came to actual fruition, and we never lost our love for the theater, any of it.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about these days? Would you rather do theater or motion pictures?
Oh, there's no contest. Theater all the way. That's why we go out every year at summer stock. But
that live audience does something for you.
Oh, that's what it does. It's wonderful. Nothing quite like it. You wanted a story. I just was going over in my mind. A quick story. Two lads met on Broadway. Two boys from Galway. One fellow said, "I haven't seen you since we left Ireland 40 years ago. How are you?" His pal said, "I'm fine." He said, "Are you married?" "Oh," he said, "indeed I am. My wife is an angel." I said, "Geez, you're lucky. Mine's still alive."
Pat O'Brien, that's a great story. In fact, the whole conversation has been great as far as I'm concerned, but I'm going to let you go because I know you have other things you have to do. We're going to be watching for the motion picture, The End, also the other one you mentioned that should probably be out maybe next month sometime.
It should be out shortly, and I'm sorry you missed the Griffin show because he gave the whole show to us because to promote the picture. And there's some great performances in it, Sam Wanamaker, and of course, I don't know whether I'm sure some of your listeners remember Mr. Smith Goes to Washington with Jimmy Stewart.
Sure.
So this is a remake. And it's rather controversial, but it abounds in some truisms about a few congressmen that it's certainly behind closed doors in Washington second time around. And it's counterpart, practically.
Here's a question I just happened to have come to mind, Pat. What do you consider your greatest role in the motion pictures, or have you had any favorites?
Well, I presume because of its biographical context, Knute Rockne, Notre Dame, coach of Notre Dame.
Terrific picture.
And also The Last Hurrah with Spencer Tracy. And my first picture, which was Front Page. That was the one that Howard Hughes brought me out from Broadway, and I was under contract to him for 2 years.
And that was redone here relatively recently, wasn't it?
Yes, I never looked at it. I couldn't look at it objectively, so I decided the best thing was not to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, Jack Lemmon plays the role I played, Hildy Johnson.
How about people you've worked with? Do you have any favorites? I know it's hard.
Well, Helen Hayes is my all-time favorite. I never made a picture with her. We played in the theater together in Coquette. And I would say my favorite actress in pictures, having worked with her and I adore her, is Barbara Stanwyck. And of those who are gone, I had some wonderful leading ladies. I played opposite Jean Harlow in Blonde Bombshell, Carol Lombard in Virtue, Betty Davis in The Bureau of Missing Persons, Kate Francis, Claire Trevor. But my favorite of all, and that includes Barbara, was Ann Sheridan. We did 6 pictures together, and I just adored her. Another one of my favorite gals, Josephine Hutchinson, and we just made 2 pictures together. But we played on Broadway before, but I made one of my, you were asking me about favorite pictures, made opposite her in Oil to the Lamps of China. That's back in around 36, so that's 40 years ago. But it's shown a great deal on The Late Show. Like people ask me if I look at the old pictures, I said every chance I get, I just turn the dial and watch my hairline recede.
How do you think motion pictures have changed over the years, Pat? And do you think that we're going uphill or downhill?
Well, in my book, I mean, as far as the picture per se has gone downhill or around the barn, and I mean the barn. I mean, it's when you look back and look at the record and see the pictures like Sound of Music and Gone with the Wind and all of these pictures, there's nothing whatsoever offensive in them. Now they lean towards this pornography, and I don't know what they're trying to tell you. Everybody knows all the words, but who cares about it? But I do think that the pendulum will swing back. I think it's inevitable. You know, a lot of people say all those pictures we made in the old days, they were corny. Well, they may have been corny, but I'll tell you one thing. The fella could come home from work at night and maybe he'd want to relax with the kids, or his wife would say, well, there's a wonderful picture, and they say that so-and-so in the picture reminds us of Aunt Edna, and the guy reminds us of Uncle Bill, or something. The guy finally persuaded to go, and he goes to the theater and relaxes. He can't do that today. But I do think the kiss of death is now, they make all of these pictures based on all the improprieties and everything else, and after all, I'm not a prude, but this is ridiculous. And when they start laughing at these pictures, that's the kiss of death. There are certain pictures, let's face it, that, you know, if it warrants it, like there was a nude scene, I believe, in Romeo and Juliet, you weren't offended whatsoever. I think it was done in gauze or something. But the other things, the majority of these things, of course, nudities belong in the, let's face it, in the Metropolitan or the Louvre, because it's great art, and I think that it's they prostitute the great art when they do it through the media with all of the suggestiveness. As I say, I'm not a prude, but I'm a prude along those lines, because there's no place I can take with few exceptions, my grandchildren to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If you turn the dial and look at the old pictures, they're not going to put you to sleep. They'll keep you awake, and believe me, you know, you take a love scene like it happened one night that swept the ticket that year. It won all the awards, and probably the sexiest scene in the business. All they did was have a curtain between the two of them and left the rest of it to your imagination. It was one of the finest love scenes that Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert ever played. But they've resorted to all this for a fast buck, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting at any rate, and I guess the movies and in some cases the theater have gone that route too.
Yeah, I think so. Of course, it's getting to a point now where, you know, any of the scripts you read, you know, if you don't want to go into retirement again, well, you better play the part. You know, but I wouldn't play a part like that. I probably, you know, might be in the picture where some of those things happen. They're far apart from me, actually.
Pat O'Brien, I want to say I've enjoyed talking to you. Best of luck in the future, and
Well, thank you, Ken. And if you're around Janesville, call up, say hello.
all righty. Or if we happen to see you in Chicago at the Drury Lane Theater, I will give you another buzz.
Well, down there, come backstage and say hello.
Will do.
Okay, Ken. God bless you and your listeners.
Same to you.
Okay.